Alrighty, so in case you've been living under a rock, Blizzard announced some pretty significant, had some pretty significant announcements related to vanilla and classic era and hardcore yesterday. But before we talk about all that, we're going to start from the beginning here, okay? Turn down the music a little bit. We're going to start from the beginning here. We're going to start with why classic era, we're going to start with why classic World of Warcraft just in general exists in the first place, okay? Back in about 2016 or so, a private server called Nostalrius got shut down. Nostalrius was a private server that hosted vanilla World of Warcraft in its unchanged form, that allowed people to play an old version of the game that did not exist anymore and was not possible to be played on Blizzard's official servers anymore. And it let people experience the version of the game that they might have missed out on back in 2004 or wanted to relive back then. Blizzard, essentially, from what we know, sent them a cease and desist. Nostalrius got shut down. And when that happened, there was a giant outcry of people basically saying, like, if you're going to shut this shit down, you need to give us a official version of vanilla World of Warcraft that we can play.
Liar,
we just want to play vanilla. We want to play the old version of the game.
Little liar, dude.
We want to be able to experience a version of the game that you guys no longer offer anymore. Okay? Because keep in mind, what happened with World of Warcraft originally was, came out in 2004, right? It was vanilla WoW. Everyone had no idea what the fuck they were doing, blah, 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 whatever. And then in 2006, I guess, late 2006 came around, they released Burning Crusade. And from that point onward, vanilla WoW in its original form no longer existed. And then, of course, that became more and more like the case as expansions went on, right? Wrath changed the original game a little more. Kata changed the original game a lot. And then, over the course of each expansion, as they iterated, the original game in its original form slowly disappeared until eventually it got to the point where remnants of the original game were almost completely gone. So that's why we got back to the sentiment of, well, shit, it'd be really nice to play the original version of the game that was officially hosted by Blizzard. Obviously, it was very popular still, because people were playing it on private servers a shitload. Even whether it be, whether it was like Nostalrius or Chronos or whatever, there was obviously appeal for it. And so finally, Blizzard was like, okay, yeah, let's. All right, you guys ruined it. So okay, hold on.
Full fucking beast, boys. I don't care what it takes.
You guys lost your toys. Good job. Okay. So, eventually we got to 2017. And this is after the infamous, like, you think you do, but you don't quote. Blizzard for so long had been like, nope, we're not doing classic WoW. We're not bringing back old WoW. If you want to play World of Warcraft, play retail, right? And so eventually we got to the point where even Blizzard was like, okay, we're going to cave. You're right. We're going to release classic WoW. We're going to bring back the old version of the game so that way you can experience the old version of the game as it was. And everybody was like, hooray, we've done it. Cool. And then 2019 rolls around and they release classic World of Warcraft. And it was fucking awesome. Is vanilla a perfect game? No. Was vanilla 2019 perfectly executed and did the player base universally praise it as perfect? No. But at the same time, was it also a overwhelmingly smashing success and everybody for the most part played the shit out of it and we all can collectively agree that we had a blast? Yeah. And then came the part that I frankly always dreaded, which was, okay, well, we went through all the content and now we've reached the end of the vanilla cycle. Well, what do we do now? And Blizzard had a few choices. They could have gone for the Classic Plus route, and this was the least likely possibility in fairness. They could have gone onto the Classic Plus route, where they decided to iterate, where they basically decided to add additional content onto vanilla and keep vanilla going, continuing it, right? Or they could have just reset the servers, started again from scratch, or from the beginning and just go through vanilla again. Or the most likely and most obvious option, they went on and moved on to TBC, right? They ended up choosing option 3 and we went on to TBC. But they blessed us with a nice little compromise, basically. Even if they were moving on to TBC, which in my eyes was sad at the time, but also like inevitable. They came up with a nice compromise, right? They said like, okay, well, TBC is going to be a thing and your current characters in vanilla can go to TBC. Or we're going to give you this alternate option called Classic Era. Classic Era is going to be this version of the game that stays exactly the same as it was at the very end of 2021 vanilla. They said, word for word, Classic Era will be a snapshot of Classic Vanilla the day before the TBC pre-patch. That was the exact definition of what Classic Era is. It is a snapshot of Classic Vanilla the day before TBC pre-patch released. No changes. Like, not like pure 100,000% Blizz like no changes, but a snapshot of Classic Vanilla the day before TBC released. Okay? You have the post if I need it. I think I summarized it well enough, but appreciate it nonetheless. So yes, Chrono Boons were in the game. Yeah, okay. Black Lotus had been changed a little bit. I mean, the batching was gone at that point. But I think everybody collectively agreed that the version of the game that existed the day before the TBC pre-patch came out was a very acceptable version of Vanilla WoW that we were all happy with, that we all were fine with, and we all were completely okay with it just remaining in that way, static forever, okay? So anybody trying to say that like, well, Chrono Boons like, Blood Lotus changes. Fine, you're right. But Classic Era is not defined as a 100% Blizz-like version of vanilla. I will say again, okay? So that way when you guys bring it up, inevitably in the next half an hour, I'll call you a dumbass and not feel bad about it. Classic Era is a snapshot of Classic Vanilla the day before TBC pre-patch came out. That's what was sold to us. That's what we were told it would stay as in perpetuity. And that's what we expected to get for the foreseeable future. Okay? That's what we want. That's what we're asking for. That's what we accepted as what we're getting. So, fast forward to the next few years, okay? We have TBC, we play all the way through that. We have Wrath, we play all the way through that. And this entire time, Eras existed, and for the first part of Era's lifetime, like, almost no one played it. It was pretty damn dead. But then Wrath came around, and all of a sudden, like, oh, shit, a few more people are playing. Oh, a few more people are playing. Oh, Old War came out? Oh, a lot more people are playing. Oh, shit, like, TOGC's out? Jesus Christ, it's fucking packed. Metric fuck ton of people. Era went through this renaissance. Era went through this cycle where it was like, you know, back in 2019 Classic, like super active and then it completely died and then it came back. Because turns out, and I know this lesson from experience, turns out that you never truly You never truly quit Classic Vanilla. You never truly stop playing Vanilla. You might take a long break, but you always come back. You always come back. I'm mentioning SOM. SOM existed, and then it didn't. So there you go. There's SOM. And up through this entire point, up to when Classic Era went through this renaissance and just got super popular again. For the most part, and I know you can nitpick the fuck out about what I'm about to say, but it is of my opinion that for the most part, it remains completely unchanged. Yes, you can argue like, well, streamer, the honor system got changed. Well, streamer, you can actually have Horde and Alliance on the same. Oh, well, streamer Nef cooldown got renewed. Whatever. Number one, there was no actual gameplay changes, okay? None of it affected actually how you played the game. It was all just either extremely minor, like quality of life changes, or extremely minor, just like nitty gritty, like it doesn't actually affect how you log in and play the game on a daily basis sort of thing. And clearly most of those changes were unintentional. Like, for example, the Nef buff having no CD, fairly certain that was unintentional. The ability to get Ren buff anywhere in the Barrens was pretty clearly unintentional because it would be stupid to implement a mechanic where you can only get Ren buff anywhere in the Barrens, only if you have booned buffs, okay? So, Yeah, farmhouse. We're almost there. I promise. We're almost there. So, this had been the case, like where there was clearly, it had remained mostly static, unchanged. Blizzard had stayed true to their word. They'd kept their promise of just keeping Era in its snapshotted state the day before TBC pre-patch. And then a couple of days ago, the new patch for SOD came out, and SOD had added in a Alliance version of Ren Buff that all of a sudden was also working on Era. And Era players were like, what the fuck? This is on Era? This must be a bug. We got to get rid of this, right? Like, this has happened before, right? SOD changes leaked over into Era. Within a few days, they always fixed it. It was fine. It was cool. And then last night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, right before they bolted out the door to go home for the day, this forum post dropped. Hold on, let me bring it up here. There we are. So now, the part that people want to know. Classic Era and Hardcore patch notes, new guild UI, Might of Stormwind World Buff, and Druid polearms. Like I said, this was posted at 5 p.m. Pacific time. In a strange turn of events, it appears that Season of Discovery patch that caused bugs on Classic Era and Hardcore servers were intentional. Today, Blizzard released patch notes that confirm blah blah blah. So, Classic Era and Hardcore. The guild's user interface has been updated to provide more ease of guild management. This one, this is weird because, who was asking for this? Whatever. This exists now, but the old version you can still access, so whatever. But, more relevantly, Alliance players now have access to Might of Stormwind, a version of the WCB World Buff effect. This new buff is gained for turning in a new quest, End of the Dark Horde in Stormwind, and is mutually exclusive with Warchief's Blessing. Also, the Songflower Serenade and Dire Maul Tribute buffs can no longer be dispelled by enemy players. Previously, these buffs were both magic buffs that could be dispelled, either by enemy players or by an enemy boss by the name of Gar. And druids can now train and use polearms. And then if that wasn't enough, the next morning, I wake up this morning to see, oh, here's an addendum to what was posted yesterday. By the way, also, we fixed multiple bugs causing quests and abilities from Season of Discovery to be unintentionally present in Classic Era. All right, cool. Good. Oh, also, the 6-hour wait between application of Rallying Kind of the Dragon Slayer and Warchief's Blessing has been reduced to 1 minute. And now everybody's asking, oh, these seem like good changes. Regardless of whether you think these are good or not, I'm going to tell you why this is still disastrous. So, I'm not really going to break down each change individually because I don't need to. Because whether these are good or not, or what exactly these are changing, doesn't really matter. Classic Era was sold to us as a snapshot of Classic Vanilla the day before TBC released. And we were told it was going to stay that way in perpetuity. They have kept that promise up until yesterday. Whether you think these are good changes or not, and honestly, in a vacuum, they probably are. Do I benefit from them? Yeah, sure. Now it means I don't have to bother mind controlling myself to get WCB on my Alliance characters. But you have to keep in mind, what this is doing is taking the statement of we're keeping these servers as the snapshot of TBC, or of Classic before TBC, and tosses that out the fucking window. It just tossed it out the 20-story building, and it's now currently plummeting to its death. It hasn't hit the ground yet. They've tossed you out the window now. You're falling at the moment. And at the moment, it's really fun because you're flying and it feels great. But the ground is coming. You can look down and see the ground coming that's going to kill you. They have officially, and maybe I was naive for thinking this, but they have officially reversed their stance on no changes on Classic Era. That is what this means. I don't care what these changes are. In particular, what they do is not relevant to me. What they're saying with this post, because every other previous change that was made was for the most part, well, they didn't even talk about it, they didn't even announce it, it's clearly kind of obviously a bug. This one is a very obvious, concerted, we are now changing era. We are now willing to change era. Not only are we making changes now, we're also setting the precedent that we're fine with making future changes to era and hardcore. How is that different from Chrono Boons? Because Classic Era is a snapshot of Vanilla Classic the day before TBC came out. After that, it was told to us it would stay the same. Chrono Boon happened before the day that TBC came out in Classic Vanilla. All right, so. A lot of people would be surprised to hear that I'm completely fine with SOD being a thing, and I'm completely fine with what they've done with SOD, and I'm completely fine with SOD being the thing that they put the majority of their effort, time, resources into nowadays. Because the thing that actually pissed me off the most about Classic Era when I first started playing it was people that would play it that were demanding changes, people that were demanding that Blizzard go back on the word about keeping Era the same. And they wanted new stuff in Vanilla. They wanted new features, new class abilities. They wanted new items and raids and blah, 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 whatever. Which, like, you know, even if I don't personally want that, I can understand where people are coming from when they want that sort of thing. And then they announced SOD. And, you know, maybe initially I was a little pissed at SOD because, like, oh, well, you know, I was hoping for my own version of Classic Plus in my head, and it's not going to be that. So I was, like, kind of upset that, like, that's the direction they're going.
Your take is based on emotion. Chronoboom's proof some changes are good. You'll get over Storm Rend one day.
I wish I could refund your money because how absolutely fucking stupid you just sounded with that statement. I literally told you why the Chrono Boon is different from what they're doing now, and yet you throw me $5 and tell me that I'll get over these changes that I already told you I don't care about specifically. I don't actually give a fuck about these changes right here. Not what they're actually doing. I don't care in reality that Alliance WCB is a thing. You're actually retarded because you listened to nothing I just said. I wish not only could I give you your $5 back, I wish I could just permaban you if you were actually a real chatter. Anyways. So, SOD was great because it gave the people that wanted changes to Vanilla their own version of the game. So now we could both happily coexist together. People that wanted to play a changed, modified version of Vanilla, okay, cool, you can play SOD. People that want to play the no changes version, okay, cool, we'll play Vanilla. We could both exist in our bubbles and have fun, all shake hands and be like, cool, you like your version, I like my version, hooray, awesome, cool. So SOD this entire time ended up being great because all the people that were demanding changes for Era disappeared. They went to play SOD, and I was like, okay, cool, have fun, enjoy, glad you're having fun. I'll do my Era thing. And plenty of other people were in the same boat as me. We're just like, cool, now we can just play no changes Era, awesome. And now, Blizzard is effectively saying, oh, you want to play the snapshotted version of Classic WoW from 2021? Well, we obviously don't want to play SOD. Well, we're not going to really do that with Era either. We're remember that whole snapshot thing? Yeah, that's not a thing anymore. And, it's really easy to say that, like, oh, well, these are just minor changes and they're good changes. It's a minor change. It's a little thing, right? If this was the first time this had happened, if this was the first time that this, like, shift from going from keeping things the same to all of a sudden, oh, we're making changes now, happened, maybe I'd be less concerned. But the reason why I'm so fucking concerned about this now is this already happened. Remember in TBC? Remember when we went from Classic Vanilla, which they were staunchly no changes, and we went to TBC? Okay? It started small, and it started slowly and subtly. But ever so slightly, they started making changes. They started, change this, adjust this, change that. Okay. They changed the drums, right? So that way the drums couldn't be, that way you got like the tinnitus thing with drums in TBC. And then about halfway, or maybe 2/3 into TBC, and then the Paladin seal twisting, that was the thing too. Like, oh, well, seal twisting, maybe we'll put that in there. Just, boom. And then, like, later into TBC, they nerfed dungeon boosting. They got rid of another Blizz-like feature, which was dungeon boosting. And and that's really when I first had alarm bells go off, and I first started saying, like, this is a bad precedent we're setting here. What does this mean for the future of the game? And then we got to Wrath, And then they just went fucking bananas. They did like, oh, well, Gary's getting nerfed. And at the time, like, I was memeing about, hooray, Gary's been nerfed. But in reality, and then I said, like, okay, guys, reality check, though. They're making changes to classes now. Now they're doing class balancing. Now they're making changes. Like, oh, well, there's a good one. Gary was overpowered. There's just this one little change. Like, don't worry, they're not going to do anything else. And then a little while later, well, we're actually going to buff Ret Paladins a little bit, too. Because the Ret Paladins were bitching and moaning on the forums. We're too underpowered. Help, 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 help. And then Blizzard sent that post, oh, don't worry, we have no plans to make any future changes to Wrath. Oh, we're stopping there. And then a couple of months later, well, we're going to change Feral Druid a little bit. We're going to buff Feral Druid. Well, we're going to nerf him again. No, you know what? I think we're going to buff them again. You know, let's buff them. Yeah, let's buff them a little bit more. Okay. And then, oh, let's give Warriors a new rune. Oh, let's adjust this class. Let's adjust that thing. Let's change the difficulty of this thing. You know what? We're actually going to add in a couple of new items here. You know what? Why don't we add a fucking WoW token? Here you go. Take the WoW token. So we got a little, you know, from TBC through Into the Wrath. Little minor change, little minor change, little minor change, minor change, minor change, minor change. Oh, we're gonna stop. Don't worry. Minor change, minor change, minor change, minor change. By the end of Wrath, at least in my opinion, it was a fucking clown fiesta. They were doing full-on class balancing. The fucking WoW token was in the game. And they were adding in items that never previously existed. So it's easy to sit here and say, oh, well, come on, these are good changes. It's just a little thing. Streamer, why are you getting so upset? You'll get over it. I don't care about these changes in a vacuum. If I had some absolute ironclad contract-bound guarantee that these changes are a thing, but there'll never be any additional ones, I'd be like, all right, fine. This is all fine. Whatever. But history has already proven that this is not what's going to happen. Once you open the door for changes, you have set a precedent that you're not going back on. You are now saying, okay, we're willing to change this version of the game now. And as soon as that happened in Wrath, every fucking class went to the forums and bitched and fucking moaned to Agren and said, help, 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 my class is underpowered. And eventually Blizzard caved. And they kept caving. They kept caving over and over and over and over again. Until all of a sudden, the few minor changes they made here and there added up to many, many changes that collectively were no longer minor. And if you want to take it a step further, this happened back in original retail vanilla. You went from the original retail vanilla game, like, I hate this thing, I need more quality of player, we gotta change this, we should add flying mounts, we should change this, add this. And you went to TBC and you got a little bit more, you went to Wrath, you got a little bit more, and you went to Kata, you got a little bit more, and then Pandas, and you got a little more, and then 15 years later, you've arrived at retail. Is retail bad? No. Not objectively. It's a matter of opinion whether you like retail or not. But there's no denying that it is a completely different game than the original version of the game. It's obviously, in all intents and purposes, it's WoW 2. It's just the sequel to original WoW, in all but name. Which is fine, but it's obviously a different game. So if you want to play the original version of the game, you can't just tell someone, well, just play retail. That's World of Warcraft. That used to be the original version, because it's not the same game. There is now a timer on Classic Era WoW, and Hardcore for that matter. I don't play Hardcore personally, but I still feel for the Hardcore gamers. There's now a timer. Is Classic Era ruined? This is obviously a matter of opinion, but so everyone has their own different timer. Sub Dazzin coming in off the subs, thank you, sir. All to the Hot Pockets Doritos Fund. Everyone has now their own little personal timer. If you're an enjoyer of Classic Era, and you're an enjoyer of playing the snapshotted version of Classic Vanilla from 2021, there's now this timer. You don't know what the timer is exactly, but it is ticking down. And it's eventually going to hit 0. And when that happens, they're going to make the change that you no longer think is all that great. A bunch of people are saying, this is a good change. How is this not a good change? I like this change. If you like these changes, good for you. But if they keep making changes, here's a minor one, here's another minor one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, I guarantee you, eventually there's going to be a change that you don't like so much. And then all of a sudden you're going to realize, like, wait a minute, can we not change this? Why are we making changes? Can we stop? Can we revert this one? But it's going to be too late because they've already changed a shitload of other things. And now, like, well, sorry, we're making changes now. So unfortunately, it's hard not to feel like, especially based on past history with what happened in TBC and Wrath, that Pandora's box is now open. We're on a timer. We're on that hidden timer, and it's counting down, and it's going to hit 0 when eventually that change that maybe you don't like so much ends up getting added. And yeah, exactly. I mean, that's apparently, I guess, when you stop playing. It just sucks that we've reached the point where it's just like, well, we're changing the game now, so, eventually you're just going to have to quit. I guess you're just going to have to go back to private servers now. Whereas originally we were basically told like, oh, you can just play this game in perpetuity. Like, well, for sure, I know I'm happy with this. I know I want to play this. And now Blizzard's basically saying like, well, eventually we're going to make it so you don't want to play anymore. So, that's coming, by the way. Just so you know. Can we not? Can we just all collectively agree that this is some bad nightmare? And just go back to 3 days ago, and all Blizzard has to do is revert this shit, and we can just all collectively go back to this version of the game that we all collectively agree is anywhere between close to perfection or good enough. Shake hands and say, like, let's actually keep doing that. Because if they did that, I know for a fact I would continue playing this game for indefinitely, because I know for sure it's going to be something that I enjoy and want to play. I know other people share this sentiment with me because I've seen plenty of other people type out or say this exact thing in the past 24 hours or so. Just tuning in, can I explain why the timer didn't start with the Chrono Boon? Because Classic Era is a snapshot of Classic Vanilla the day before the TBC pre-patch came out, and Classic Era was supposed to remain in that snapshotted state indefinitely. Okay? So anything that happened before the last day of the TBC pre-patch was said, this is staying in the game, and it's going to be this way from now on. Okay? So there's a very, very clear demarcation line between when the stuff that they did was told is going to be in the game, and then anything after that isn't going to change. Okay? I'm not saying it needs to remain no changes, because you're right, no changes technically ended the day Classic came out. But they gave us a very clear line of this is the day where it's from there on out, it's staying the same. And so all the people saying like, stop living in the past, old man. Stop just pretending like we can't make some changes to Era, and stop pretending like, oh, there can't be good changes made to Era. I agree. You can make good changes to Era. Are there changes that are just objectively good changes? Absolutely. Chrono Boon, for example, back in the day, that was a good change. Changing the Black Lotus stuff, that was a good change. Honestly, these changes in a vacuum, yeah, probably a good change. I benefit from these changes. You guys are trying to like spin this as if like, oh, you're just upset because you don't like these changes. No, in a vacuum, these changes are good. For me, for almost everyone. But, okay, pretend it's like this, okay? Back in 2003, you're all fresh-faced, technology, digital age, whatever. You're a big Star Wars fan, okay? So you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go to the store, I'm gonna spend some money, I'm gonna splurge a little bit, I'm gonna buy the full original trilogy on DVD, okay? I wanna buy just the true original movies, the true original OG Star Wars trilogy, so that way I can go home and enjoy the original movies that I know and I love and I revere, okay? And then like, okay, so in the future, eventually, well, as it happens with every franchise nowadays, they start releasing more stuff, more Star Wars content, right? Like the prequels come out, okay, sure. The sequel trilogy comes out, sure. Rogue One comes out, all the TV shows, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you like those, maybe you don't. But what you know for sure is that like, okay, if I want to be able to enjoy the original Star Wars movies, I can always go back to my DVDs, plop them into the DVD player that you still own in 2024 for some reason, and enjoy the original Star Wars trilogy. Is the original Star Wars trilogy perfect? No. It's got some pretty fucking cheesy dialogue. A lot of the special effects haven't held up well. The story is a little cliche, it's a little weak, but at the end of the day, you accept the flaws of the original Star Wars trilogy because you still love them and you still accept that, like, as a complete product, they are still amazing movies. Return of the Jedi, maybe that's debatable, but certainly the first two, whatever. Anyways. Oh, and this is actually hilarious. Robert Jordan saying, lol, OG trilogy isn't even available. You only get the SE version. Just like Classic Era isn't technically the OG version of the game. It's slightly modified, but it's still the version that you have on DVD that is never going to change, right? Because you have it on DVD, and the slightly modified but still amazing and still fine version of the movies that you have is what you have on DVD and is fine. Okay? Subamino, thank you for the sub. And now, 20 years later, George Lucas comes knocking. Open the door. Hey, are you George Lucas? George Lucas puts a gun to your fucking head and says, yeah, I'm gonna need those DVDs that you have currently sitting in your living room. I need to modify them. We're gonna be changing those DVDs now. And you're like, I don't want to give you my DVDs. Like, I just want to. I want them to be the same. I'd like them to stay the way they are, so that way I can just go back and enjoy them. He's like, and like, if I wanted to watch the special editions, I could always just go watch the special editions as well. And George Lucas is like, yeah, no, fuck you. I don't care if you like the original versions of your DVDs. Give me the fucking discs. I'm adding new shit. You see what I'm saying here, man? I have my DVDs. Classic Era is my DVD, okay? I recognize that the content on that DVD isn't perfect, but it's the version that I know and love that I can go back to whenever I want, and I know it's going to be there for me. And all of a sudden, if George Lucas starts knocking on my door every month saying, hey, I got to modify your DVD again, you're going to be pissed the fuck off. Yeah, I buy DVDs. I'm some fucking old washed up boomer playing classic WoW. You probably still own DVDs too. Now, some people might use this analogy to say like, well, George Lucas is the original creator of Star Wars. He totally has a right to be able to change his movies. He totally has a right to be able to modify them. Yeah, Agron, by the way, is knocking on my door, but he's got a gun. But the thing is, okay, so in this analogy, oh, well, Blizzard has completely has the right to change their own game. It's Blizzard's game. They made it, and so therefore they can modify it. I'll toss you into a different analogy then to counter that argument, okay? Imagine you go to the Louvre in Paris, okay? The Louvre, oui. And you go to the Mona Lisa and you're like, wow, look how cool the Mona Lisa is. But I think they could do better. I think they could maybe change it a little bit because, you know, I can see some imperfections. And so you decide, you know what? Let's get Leonardo to change it. We need Leonardo to modify the Mona Lisa. There's a few things that could be touched up. There's a few things that maybe, the lighting here is a little weird. So you hop on your phone, you call up Leonardo DiCaprio and be like, hey, Leo, we need you to change the Mona Lisa. Your name is Leonardo, right? Yeah, so you do have the same name as the guy who originally painted it? You do. Okay, yes, so you have every right to change it because, yeah, Leonardo. Yeah, come on over. Just because Leonardo DiCaprio has the same name as the dude that originally made the painting does not make him the same person who has a right to be able to change the original game. Leonardo DiCaprio's dead. He's gone. He's not coming back. Just like the original classic dev, or the original vanilla dev team is gone. Everybody working in Classic WoW nowadays did not work on the original game. They are dead. They are completely dead. Yes, Jeff Kaplan just died in some horrible, gruesome car accidents. Yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio, he's also dead. Yes, he fucked one too many 20-year-olds. Had a heart attack. Unlucky, brother. He's gone. He's gone. Okay? So trying to say that, like, well, it's Blizzard's game. They can change it however they want. It's their original vision. If they want to come up with their new original version, their new iteration, go for it. If Leonardo DiCaprio wants to paint his own Mona Lisa from scratch, go for it, man. Hell, if he wants to get a print of the Mona Lisa and then make modifications to it, go for it, man. But I'm not about to let Leo walk into the Louvre, take the Mona Lisa off the wall, and start going to town. The Mona Lisa's fine, man. Let us appreciate the OG. If we want to look at your shitty modified version of it, then we'll Google it, okay? So, to all the people that are just like, it's just one thing, streamer. It's just a small thing. It's just a small little thing. Leo just made his first brushstroke. Do you think he's going to stop at that? Do you think he's going to make one brushstroke and be like, there we go, that's good enough, I'll stop there? No, he's going to be like, well, this section needs a little touching up. Well, change, maybe fill this part in too. Maybe change this little thing too. Okay. Doomer? Yeah, I am. You know why? Because Blizzard has already proven that exactly what I'm fearing is what they're going to do. They've already done it. What I'm saying is going to happen, I'm very confident it's going to happen because it already has. Very recently, in fact. Extremely recently. Calling me a doomer is like calling a person a doomer because they're concerned that Hitler just annexed Austria. Okay? Blizzard, in this analogy, they're Nazi Germany. Okay? Back in before World War II, Germany had been kicked to shit, okay? And in World War I, they were paying reparations, they were really pissed, whatever. And so, eventually, they start to do this big military buildup. They start to do this giant, okay, we're gonna have to, you know what, we're taking the reins back from Europe. We're going hard again. And the entirety of the rest of Europe sees this and be like, that doesn't look good, but, I don't really want to piss off Germany, so, you know what, let them just do this one thing. You going to invade Poland? Well, we'd really rather you not, but, all right, you can have Poland. You're going to annex Austria? Well, I mean, we'd really rather have you not, but, okay. Oh, you're invading Czech Republic? I'd really rather you don't, but, okay, but stop there, okay? Okay, in this analogy, Germany just invaded Poland, okay? And you're sitting here, let's say in France, and I don't know, you're enjoying a baguette, and you're like, I always hated Polish people anyways, so I don't really care. That's fine. That's a pretty good change that now, I'd rather let's have Poland be taken over by Germany. I think they'd do a better job at controlling Poland anyways. And then they annex Austria. Austrians, they're basically just fake Germans anyways. I don't really care, it's fine. I mean, is anybody really upset by this? It's fine. And then they invade Greece, and you're like, Greek people were always really rude to me when I went on vacation there. It's fine, whatever. And then you give it a few more years, and all of a sudden, Hitler's at your doorstep and saying, hello, France is now mine. Hi, I'm here to take over your country now. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on. I don't want you to take over my country. It's too late, Hitler has already invaded, he already did his blitzkrieg. Yeah, congratulations, you're now Vichy France. And only then do you realize, maybe we should have actually stopped them in the first place when he was trying to take over Poland instead of letting him take over all of Europe first. Because now all of a sudden we realize that the entire European map is Germany, and all of a sudden that little minor invasion he did, and that minor invasion after that, and the minor invasion after that, all has kind of added up to be a pretty major shift in the geopolitical landscape. I'm getting this history right. Yeah, they didn't invade Poland first. Whatever. There's a whole bunch of appeasement. My history's not perfect. You get the analogy I'm making, okay? So, I will admit, I was probably too naive. I am probably the allies before the war started in this scenario. In that, in reality, Hitler's, when he starts rearming himself and starts creating a bunch of tanks and shit, that's them changing the honor system at the time, right? It doesn't actually really change anything, and it doesn't really affect anything, and as long as you're not using the tanks, it doesn't matter. But that's the first sign that something might be going wrong at this point. And even I saw that, I was like, well, I'm gonna choose to ignore that and just live in my happy bubble and just assume that everything's gonna be fine. Just I watched Faye a few days ago, right? Talk about why he was quitting SOD, and I made some comments about how Faye talked about how he was surprised and caught off guard when Blizzard started making all these weird modifications to the game and putting their own footprint on the game, and he was wondering do these people even play the game? Do they even know what players want? Making a bunch of changes that are really against the spirit of Classic, and I was talking about at the time about how unfortunately, he's super naive for expecting Blizzard to keep things in the spirit of Classic, because the spirit of Classic that he expected and I expect went out the window a long time ago, at least in TBC and then Wrath. So I was talking about like how like, yeah, Faye unfortunately was a little naive on that front, like believing that like Blizzard was going to keep things within the spirit of Classic. And now I'm realizing that like, okay, maybe I was also pretty naive for thinking that like, oh, don't worry, they'll keep Classic Era no changes. Don't worry, they're going to stick to their word. They're going to stick to their promise. Oh, don't worry. Blizzard told us that like they're going to keep Era as a snapshot of Classic Vanilla before TBC came out, and so therefore we're fine. So therefore, like, I can just keep playing this version that we know will just be here in perpetuity and stay the same. And now all of a sudden, the German planes are on their way to drop the bombs in my city. So, yeah, the timer started, right? The planes will be here soon. I don't know when the planes are going to arrive, but the planes are on their way. And eventually, even if they already dropped the bombs on Paris, and they already dropped the bombs on Brussels, and they already dropped the bombs on Amsterdam, I don't live in those cities. So, like, to me, am I quitting? No. Are these deal breakers for me specifically? No. But the planes are coming, man. And eventually, they're going to drop the bomb that hits your city. And when they do, all of a sudden, all these minor changes that are fine, you're not going to be so okay with. And then you'll realize, like, well, I just want to play the original version of the game, and then it'll be too late. Then, sorry, Hitler's already taken over Europe. You're saying, like, you'd be fine with them removing debuff cap. I'm sure a lot of people would be fine with that. But I don't want that. That's the problem, man. Your minor good change that you think they should make isn't necessarily a good change that other people want. It's not a good change for other people. I'm sure plenty of people in SOD, when they removed GDKP, celebrated it. I'm sure the anti-GDKP people were like, hooray, it's gone, great change, good job, Blizzard. But then also, I know a shitload of people who quit SOD because, oh shit, they removed GDKPs and I really fucking wanted to do GDKPs. So that's the problem, man. We talked about this earlier, right? We mentioned this when I was in Blasted Lands. It's extremely difficult to make an MMO and make changes that people are going to be happy with, because MMO players are all they're individual players, right? They all have different preferences. They all want different things. They're extremely hard to collectively satisfy. Absolutely, that guy that said that was right. He didn't intend that statement to be used in the way I'm using it, but he's still right. It is extremely difficult to satisfy an MMO community and make changes that are universally accepted. Which is why trying to make changes to Era is such a terrible idea. Because at the end of the day, no matter what they do, no matter what they change, you're going to piss people off and drive people away. Yes, if they make a good change, quote, quote, the majority of people will like it and keep playing, but there will be a small percentage that's like, fuck this. And then you make another minor good change, and most people like it, but there's also a tiny percentage that are like, fuck this. And then you do that 10 more times, and all of a sudden you realize, like, the minor, tiny portion of your player base that you drove away with each change is all of a sudden added up to be half your player base. Removing GDKPs was great. Yeah, I think a lot of people obviously like that change. But let's not ignore the fact that a lot of people fucking hated it and stopped playing SOD because of it. Everybody playing SOD is like, why is SOD dying? Where's all the players? Why did people stop playing SOD? I don't know, the population's so small, blah, blah, blah. If they keep making little incremental changes here and there that you mostly like, it's still going to drive away a little percentage each time. And with an old version of the game like this, that doesn't appeal to a bunch of like new Zoomers that want to like come in and play for the first time, eventually there's only so many people there are to drive away until they're just gone. What about the opposite? Without minor changes, you'll also lose people who grow tired. We're playing a version of the game where you sign up for a version of the game that has been told is not going to change. If you're playing Classic Era, by default, you're expecting a version of the game to not change. If you're the type of player who gets tired of playing vanilla after 3 months, then you're not playing Classic Era in the first place. Everybody, this is like, I saw Gray's echo this sentiment earlier, and I will echo this again because he's absolutely right. The people that are saying, like, shut up, Coper, the people that are saying these changes, come on, why are you even complaining about these? The people that are, like, saying that, like, it's totally fine to change Era are not the fucking people that are playing Era. It's all these fucking SOD Copers coming in and be like, shut up, stop whining, changes are fine. Like, I don't play Era, but like, fuck you, it's fine. No, fuck you. You don't play the game, so why the fuck does your opinion matter? Fuck off. Go play SOD. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad you like changes. I'm glad you're having fun with that version of the game. It's totally fine. But stop coming fucking into this other version and be like, well, this is how I would do it, and therefore this is how you have to do it because like this is how you're supposed to have fun. Fuck you, all right? I don't give a flying fuck how you choose to have fun, but stop fucking telling me how I should or should not be having fun, all right? I don't give a fuck about who you are. I don't give a fuck about why you think this way is the true way to play the game, because you should be able to play this game in many different ways and still enjoy it. So you do your thing. Let us have our thing, man. Okay, now we're going to talk about some of these actual changes, okay? I do have a few comments on these because I do want to talk about how these will actually impact the game. There's going to be some good results of this, but there's going to be some negative things that I think a lot of people really aren't considering for what it's worth. I'm not saying these changes are ruining Era. I'm not saying that I hate these changes because, like I said, in a vacuum, these changes are fine. They have benefits. They do have some downsides, but they have some benefits. So, first things first. I don't care about the guild UI, whatever. There's a weak order to restore the old one. I'm just going to use that. Whatever, I don't care. Alliance players now have access to Might of Stormwind, to a version of the War Chief's Blessing world buff effect. This new buff is gained for turning a new quest into the Dark Lord Stormwind mutually exclusive to War Chief's Blessing. So basically what this is it's Alliance Rend. It gives you the same buff that lasts for 60 minutes. You acquire it basically in the same way by killing Rend, and you get the quest item, you turn it in. However, there are a few pretty major differences between this one and the Horde one that's going to matter in ways that I think a lot of people either don't know or aren't thinking about. Imagine if he cared this much about anything important. My brother in Christ, I stream for a living. I make money to pay my rent and pay for food and pay for life expenses by playing this game. It might not be to you, but to me, this game is extremely important. This game, for better or for worse, is essentially my life, okay? So yes, I think I have a right to care about this and call this, at least for me, perfectly. As is XOXO, your joke's not funny. I'm just gonna permaban you if you try to spam the exact same comments again. All right, cool. So, Allied WCB, here's how it's working right now, okay? You get the Ren head. It drops 1 per UBRS, but like in reality, you can just spam UBRS forever and essentially just get everybody on the Alliance side with the Ren head. And you can turn that in and essentially provide every existing Alliance character on Era and every future Alliance character in Era now has a Ren buff they can turn in on Ally side. Oh, did they actually change it for everyone now in group? Yeah, sure, let's have the Neff head drop for everyone in group too. Yeah, fuck it. Let's have the Ani head drop for every single person in group now too. Fuck it. Get world buffs for everyone. Let's have a car drop 20 hearts. Yeah, cool. Let's have Osirian drop 20 heads. Yeah, that's great. That's cool. That's awesome. I love it. Wow, okay, that's... All right, there you go. Whatever, fine, sure, whatever. We're making changes now, so I might as well just keep changing it. See, I told you. See, that's another town that just got hit by a bomb, and it's not your town, but you don't care, and you're like, I hated that town anyways. But see, that's the next town that the German planes just bombed. They just bombed the last one within the past like few hours apparently. All right, cool. The German planes, they're still on their way, by the way. They're flying towards you. You don't know when they're going to get there, but they just destroyed another town. They're still working on it. Anyways, so this buff, as far as I know, well, actually, I don't know. I think I heard conflicting reports as to what the cooldown on this buff was, okay? It was either 2 hours, or maybe it was 3, or maybe it was, I don't know. Yeah, there's stealth bombers too. You don't hear them coming, which sucks. So, the thing that sucks about this buff is that you have absolutely no fucking idea when it's going to go out, and even when it's gone out. If they're gonna like implement this, at least implement it correctly. There is 0 time between when you turn in the head and when the buff goes out. You turn in the head and the buff is just instantly dropped. Which means that you have absolutely no advance notice. You have no way to be logged off and then, oh shit, I need the buff login. And you have absolutely no way to know that like any indication outside of the buff going onto your bars. There's no like RP yell in Stormwind. There's no like noise that's made. There's no little lightning animation that hits you. It's just like all of a sudden just like, oh, you have the buff. So if we're gonna do this, why the fuck are you making it as annoying as possible to get this buff? It's gonna be impossible to be like, oh, well, I'm logged off trying to buff outside the boon, or like, oh, I'm logged off because I just used my chrono boon and it's on CD, so I need to be able to log in when I know the Ren buff's going. Oh, no, it's out. Sorry, you missed it. Fuck you. And also, multiple times when this happened yesterday, I just didn't see that I got the buff. I was just like, I looked over like, oh, apparently that buff went out 16 minutes ago. There was no RP, there was no lightning, there was no indication at all. It's just there. Well, I can't boon a 44-minute ally Ren. Like, okay, I'll click it off. Try again, I guess. All right, sure. So, if you're gonna implement this shit, can you at least implement it in a way that isn't really fucking stupid? Like, that's my thoughts on that one, okay? And then also the fact that, okay, we're gonna combo this with talking about this one down here, okay? So this originally was not a thing yesterday. So I was already like thinking like, well, this kind of sucks for Horde. And now this really sucks for Horde. And here's why, okay? 6-hour wait between applications of Rallying Cry and War Chief's Blessing has been reduced to 1 minute. By the way, this was a 3-hour wait, but you get it. So I think they're trying to change era into SOD era at the end of SOD. I'll talk about it at the end, but I don't know if I'm... I don't think they'll go to that extreme, but at this point, anything's on the table, man. Anyways. So I saw a comment earlier saying, like, this is great for a low-pop Horde server. Now, this is going to save Horde. This is going to make Horde, oh, so much better now. Great, awesome. In the extremely short term, that's probably true. Because now all of a sudden, if you're Horde, like, fuck, I need to get Ren buff. Like, oh, now the guild can drop it. Cool, now we can just drop it when we're doing a buff train. This is going to make getting Ren buff easier instead of having to camp Orgrimmar all day and hoping it goes out. Okay. Probably not wrong. But you gotta think long term. You gotta think past this 1 week where it's gonna be beneficial. Park Pizza, you clearly weren't here for this entire discussion, so please watch from the start of this discussion because I'm not gonna humor your ridiculously stupid question. So here's how it works right now for Horde, for Ren buff on Firemaw. I can speak for this server. I can't speak for every other server for sure, but at least for like Whitemane, I know almost certainly that works like this. Right now, Ren, when it comes, well, as of a few days ago, Ren would come off CD after its 3-hour CD. And the vast majority of people sitting here at Thrall, watching Thrall, waiting or wondering if Ren was going to go out, was Alliance players. The vast majority of ally players who needed to get Ren buff were the ones that were sitting here, watching Thrall, needing it to go out at a very specific time, with very specific like timing, right? Because you can't just get Ren buff randomly as ally. You have to mind control yourself as a very specific time when the buff goes out, right? So, number one, what this means is that ally now have zero incentive to have WCB be dropped on Horde side. They'll just get their own. Ally says, okay, we got our own buff now, so all right, we don't need Ren buff and Org. I don't think a lot of Horde only players right now realize just how many Ren buffs are being popped by Alliance. I don't think Horde, like, it's always hilarious when you see people that are like the Horde players that are just saying stupid Alliance leechers stealing our Ren buffs. Like, I hate to break it to you, bud, but a large portion of the Ren buffs that go out right now, if ally characters didn't need to get it, they just wouldn't be popped. They just wouldn't go out. It's not like some hero of the Horde would pop it instead. You're just not going to get the buff. The vast majority of the Ren buffs that I get on Salvador and my Horde Warrior come from people that are on Alliance that are having it popped. So if you're celebrating this as Horde right now, yeah, in the short term, cool, you can turn in your Ren head now without CD and get it when you want. But there's only a finite amount of Ren heads that you can turn in. There's only a finite amount of Ren heads that can be farmed, and once you've done the quest, you've done the quest. And now someone is going to come and say, well, just make the Ren quest repeatable. Who knows? Maybe they're going to do that soon too, when they realize how much this fucks up the Ren economy. Because if you can just drop your Ren with no CD, if you can drop this shit every minute, the amount of Ren heads that exist on Horde is going to rapidly decrease. If you've got, let's say, I don't know, let's say on Firemaw, this is just a guess, spitballing. Let's say there's currently 100 Ren heads being held by characters that are ready to turn in. Well, previously, they probably aren't going to be turned in more than about once every 3 hours, right? So, you know, I think on Era, you'd probably see 4 Rens a day. So those, let's make the math easy. Let's say, oh yeah, 4 Rens a day. Okay, so that means you've got enough Ren heads to be dropped on Horde side for the next 25 days. All right, that's a while. More people will level characters in the meantime. Well, now all of a sudden you can drop it every minute. Now, obviously, in reality, people aren't going to turn their Ren head literally once per minute. But let's say now, on average, Ren head gets turned in once every half hour. And peak hours, 12 hours or so. Let's say now you're on the pace for getting about 25 Ren heads turned in per day. Doron says you were hoping for an enjoyable stream instead it's just a cry fest. You're out, enjoy. Okay, bye. Goodbye. Let's say you're popping 25 Ren heads a day now, because now it's a 1 minute CD. Well, now all of a sudden that supply of 100 Ren heads that you had on Era, instead of lasting you for the next 25 days, now it's going to last you the next 4 days. And then they're gone. Are another 100 Ren heads going to be farmed on this server for Horde within the next 4 days to supply those 4 days of Ren heads again? I don't think so. Here's the problem. So I know the Ren CD can be annoying, but this is a benefit I talked about even from day one of Classic, about how like the Ren head CD artificially limits how many Ren heads can be popped per day. Therefore, it basically forces Horde to preserve how many Ren heads they have. And if you remove the CD on Ren head, it's going to make it so those heads will get rapidly popped. Great for about a week or two maybe. But then after that, if everybody's blown their load, everyone's burned their Ren head, because every guild is now like, oh, we can rebuff and just drop our own Ren head. Eventually they're gone. And now getting Ren is going to be extremely difficult. To be fair though, we didn't have World Buff CD back on Chronos, Lights Open, and Star Wars. That's true, and Ren head was extremely annoying to acquire unless your guild was doing it in your buff train. Which, if your guild does it in the buff train, cool, but I remember, it was a problem for guilds, eventually they ran out of Ren heads, and oh shit, now we can't pop Ren every raid, I guess we're only gonna pop it, for really special raids or something. And, so when that was the case, the getting Rens was, not something you could reliably get. So something that was nice about the CD, and I know, there's downsides to the CD, but one thing that's nice about the CD is you kind of know when the buff's going to go out, right? You kind of know, you can look at the WCB timer and be like, oh, cool, so there's going to be a Ren probably in 17 or so minutes. I'll get it then. And now if you want to get Ren on Horde side, it's just it's similar to how Ani has been over the past, I don't know, whatever, 6 months. You're just well, I guess I'll just sit in Horgamar and, hope it goes off. Anybody gonna drop a Ren head? Anyone? And within the first couple of weeks, yeah, they probably will. But 3 months from now? Anyone dropping Ren? No, sorry, I already turned mine in. No, sorry, I turned mine in. No, mine's gone. No, turn mine in. And now, oh, sorry, no, somebody already turned it in 20 minutes ago. Sorry. No more Ren heads for the day. It kind of sucks, for me, for example, who likes to get world buff for farming. And, I like to be able to use buffs for farming and then get rebuffed for raid after that. I don't think this is going to make buffing easier. I think it's going to make it harder, to be honest. Just going to cry all day about this dumb shit. Okay, guys. If you think I'm crying and complaining for no reason, I appreciate that you have your own opinion. That's totally fine. Just don't watch. Okay? If you disagree with what I'm saying, that's totally fine. But to also not recognize anything that I'm talking about right now and understand why this is upsetting to me, either A, indicates that you don't surely watch the stream and you're just here to troll, in which case, get the fuck out, I don't care about you. Or number two, you fundamentally just don't understand what this means for the game. If you think I'm just crying here for no reason because I'm trying to get views, get clicks, no, I'd rather be farming my Earthstrike right now. I'd rather just be farming to get my Earthstrike for my alt ally warrior. But this deserves to be talked about because what this means for the future of the game that I care a lot about. And I know a lot of other people care about it too. I'm only trying to tell you all of this because it has implications for the future of the game, whether you realize it or not, that could potentially ruin it for us all. I feel like that's worth talking about. I don't know. Can I explain why I feel so strongly about how much it sucks and why I don't just stop playing? I kind of already did, man. The TLDR is basically, I don't necessarily find these changes bad in a vacuum, but this sets the precedent that they are now willing to make changes on Era, and TBC plus Wrath has already proven that they're not going to be able to help themselves. They will continue to make changes now that the precedent has been set, and eventually they're going to make a change that I don't like, that you don't like, that every other player doesn't like at some point. Eventually, they're going to change something that all of a sudden you realize maybe isn't so good for you, and then by that point, it's too late. What am I referencing as Blizzard's commitment to Classic Era being a snapshot the day after TBC came out? It's a forum post that they made. I guess I should have had Kargos link that to me. It's a forum post that they made like literally like right before Era came out, or I guess right before TBC released. I don't have it exactly on hand, but if you really feel like fact checking me, I will let me know in Discord if you want me to fact check it, and I will find that post and have it for tomorrow's stream. Oh, here's actually the okay, here you go. Never mind. Okay, no need to make the Discord. Here we go. Choose your game. Okay, there's Classic Era. Here we go, Classic Era. To join and play in Classic Era realms, you will select World of Warcraft Classic and... Wait, no, does this describe what it is? No, fuck. Where do they actually explain this? It's in here somewhere. Choose your game. Explain what Era is, boys. Need the part where they talk about what Classic Era is. Am I blind? It's in before, just like, oh, I was never in this post. What are you talking about? No, I know it's in here somewhere, but it's there. I just keep missing it. Do I? Am I blind? Control F. What am I Control F in? Snapshot? I don't know if that's the exact wording they used. Oh, okay. Important. Yeah, just give me a... Okay, here we go. Second paragraph of choose your game. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yes, I am blind. I'm sorry. All right. As mentioned during the BlizzCon line deep dive panel for Burning Crusade Classic, with the pre-expansion patch, players will be provided the option to play their character on the new Classic Era realm, just as it was as of the last day before the patch, or continue on into Burning Crusade Classic. Okay, there you go. The new Classic Era realm, just as it was the last day before the patch came out. There you go. There it is. In hard wording from the Activision Blizzard employees right there. Yeah, Blizzard just edited it for fresh, yeah. Does it say anything about forever? You know, I suppose it doesn't. But to release a version of the game that's snapshotted from one day and only to say then like, oh, also, but we're going to make changes to it like 4 years down the road is at best extremely misleading and at worst goes against all common sense that anybody could have possibly used when Classic Era first existed. Yeah, so I saw someone earlier say like it's kind of like an ego thing now. It kind of feels like that, right? It just kind of feels like the devs nowadays are just like, well, we got to put our print on the game. We got to put our mark on the game. We gotta leave our mark, right? We gotta have our influence, our vision. And like, if you want to do that, that's fine. But just implement your vision in SOD. Isn't that what it's there for? Why are you trying to implement your vision on this version of the game that people just want to have remain the same? Anybody sitting here acting like anyone expected changes in Classic Era are capping? Yeah, exactly. Like, it was just... You guys are separating reality... Or like, you're separating, like, nitpicky semantics from, like, common sense and reality. Common sense and reality dictates that, like, okay, they were snapshotting it as it was, it's staying that way forever. And now everybody's like, oh, well,
Technically, if you read the wording of that post, they didn't actually say they weren't going to make any changes, so technically they left themselves a loophole that said they could change it in 4 years.
no one likes you, okay? You're not fun at parties. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to argue with you on the internet. wonder if there's an internal pressure for classic devs to show progress or some kind of metrics or risk being fired. I don't think it has. I think it's obvious, right? Like, it's just like they gotta, when you report to the shareholders, you gotta tell everybody, like the shareholders, like what's new and exciting with our games. You gotta tell everybody how you're innovating, how things are still moving forward, how the line is going to continue to go up, right? And they just can't fucking help themselves, man. They gotta have some shiny new thing they can show off and brag about. You gotta have this shiny, and up until this point, that's at least Era has been omitted from that, because Era is just the same old crappy version of the game that Boomers plays. So whatever, we don't show this off. But apparently even now that's like, wow, I gotta leave our mark on this one too. We gotta drop this bomb on this city. Drop the little bomb there. Oh, I never liked any. I had a friend from high school that really fucking hated him. Drop my bomb in his town. So, I mean, like, so what does this mean for the future of Classic Era? In the short term, nothing. So to all the people coming in and saying, like, tell me what actually is about the game is ruined. Nothing. But you're also missing my point. The game has not been ruined by default because Ally now has WCB. I'm personally not a fan of it, obviously, but I'm not trying to say here it's a deal breaker, I'm quitting. Bah. But it's the precedent that gets set. It's the precedent that got set in TBC. And we saw what happened in TBC and then Wrath. We went from tiny minor changes that aren't a big deal to full-on class balancing. Is that going to happen in Era? I don't know. I previously I would have laughed at you and said, of course not, but like, it's on the table now. I mean, like, are we going to class balance, or are we buffing balanced druids? Are we nerfing warriors? Are we buffing warlocks? Are we going to get the WoW token now? Are we banning GDKPs? Because we already added SOD changes from into Era now, so like that's another SOD thing. Like, I guess we're banning GDKPs now. Buffing red rallies, right? We're getting the new updated loot table in MC. God, think about how many shitty items there are in MC. Let's update the loot table from SOD. That's a little thing, right? People are fine with that. We're gonna get Wind Fury in Alliance. Removing the buff cap and debuff cap. Are we going to just add a world buff vendor where you just go up to a vendor and click one option and say, boom, give me all my world buffs? It's all on the table now. Now, like, all of a sudden, like, stuff like that was previously like, well, we can't change that, is like, oh, well, we added Alliance Ren, so now we can do whatever the fuck we want. See, that's the part that That's the implication of this post. That's what this post means. Not the actual content doesn't matter. The fact that there was patch notes for Classic Era and Hardcore, you can just stop here. You don't have to read anything below that. Anyone that thinks this wasn't a fuck up from Blizzard and they CBA'd or reverted or diluted, I can guarantee you it's not. There's three reasons why, actually. Number one, it would be extremely easy to revert these changes.
What happened? Are we all fucked?
Thank you, Connexus. Your sub will go directly to top pockets and Rio's fund. It'd be extremely easy to revert. You literally just make it so Ren doesn't drop his quest item for Alliance now. So it's not like it's hard to get rid of that. It's extremely easy. It's not hard to change the... by the way, this wasn't a thing yesterday. So like this only just got changed recently. So they clearly went out of their way to change this as well. Even after it wasn't like that after the patch. These ones, it's a simple like flag and the ability to make it magic or not. It's not that hard to have the difference between the two. I don't know much about coding back end of what goes on here, but it's such a cope argument to say like, well, they just had these unintended changes, they don't know how to fix it. So there's that. And there's also the fact that like they did make a bunch of hot fixes to stuff that leaked into Era that they did change and get rid of. And so they clearly did work on getting rid of some stuff, and yet they very intentionally left this stuff. And then the number three, this one's a bit more tinfoil hatty, but like we talked about this yesterday, there was these screenshots of the talks between Zyrene and someone else, basically where a guy asked if Allied WC was like supposed to be a thing, and Zyrene essentially confirmed that like, yeah, it's intentional. So... Vance Lightning says, it's a weird choice. Hold on. It's a weird choice. Anyone still playing Era likes the game just the way it is. Changing it isn't going to suddenly bring a bunch of people to Era. It's just like Era is like the thing that, yeah, exactly, is sold as the thing you want to play if you just want to play the static version, unchanged version of the game. So like, why leave it that way all this time only to now make the 360 and change that? Like, the sentiment I'm confused by is like, there's so many people just saying like, just accept changes, just accept reality, old man, stop complaining, stop crying, stop whining. Like, am I taking crazy pills for like thinking like it's fine that you expect Era to just remain Era? Why are so many people saying shut up, Era is fine to be changed? Like, if SOD didn't exist, I could like relate with that a bit more. But like, what is wrong with the sentiment of we should just keep Era the same? What is wrong with that sentiment? I don't understand it, man. When there's so many different versions of the game, what's wrong with keeping the old school, mostly originally faithful version of the game just the same? Why is that so bad? Exploits, bugs? If they're gonna fix exploits and bugs, that's fine, but that's not what this is. I would call those bug fixes. Those are not necessarily like changing the game. Those are just fixing something that's clearly broken in the game. Whereas these are not. This is not fixing something broken. This is changing something for the sake of change. What is so wrong with just leaving Era alone? I'm not asking Blizzard this. I'm asking like people that are just saying shut up, let it happen. Like, what's wrong with the sentiment of just like, can we just have this? If I want to play a changed version of the game, I appreciate that there's an option for it, but can we have a version where that doesn't change? I think the opinions of people who don't play Era and don't intend on playing it anyways are invalid. Make a poll. That doesn't matter. I'm not making a poll. Whatever. I don't like. I'm sorry, but like, it's just such cope to say like, oh, these are unintentional changes, because of how hilariously easy it would be to fix this. So, Blizzard should respect the original state of the game, especially since it's what brought all these players back to their game. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be playing Classic anymore if it weren't for Classic Era and Classic Era sticking to its guns on no changes. So like, you know, like I said, this is not a deal breaker for me. I'm not about to just be like, and therefore I quit. No, I'm not going to be reactionary and just like stop playing out of protest. That doesn't do anything. Like, as long as the game remains fun to me, I'll keep playing. But history has proven, from both when vanilla ultimately got iterated into what retail is today, and then from what Classic started as to what Cataclysm is now, history has kind of proven that if you decide to make changes to the game, I know for me personally, it will eventually get to the point where the game will not be fun anymore. Iterating on the game in a way that, you know, the community wants. For me, and I'm just talking about me personally, I'm not saying for the overall state of the game, but for me personally, I'm saying that eventually I know it's going to get to a point where I don't like it anymore and I don't want to play it anymore. And so now this kind of sets, like I said earlier, like the timer on that. This starts the clock. This starts the clock on like, well, you're on borrowed time. There's only so much time left of how much you're going to enjoy this version of the game now. That sucks, man. That's why I care about it so much. That's why I'm so passionate about talking about this, because like, we were kind of promised one thing, and now that rug's been pulled out underneath us, and now all of a sudden the thing that you thought you could just enjoy in peace for the foreseeable future is now you're being told that's going to go away now. So, all right. I suppose we've been talking about this for over an hour now. I guess I can stop now. I mean, obviously, we're not going to stop talking about it. We can do something in the game. But, this is sad, man. This makes me sad. I'll keep playing, of course. I'm going to keep playing Era. But eventually, I don't know what's going to be, but eventually there's going to be a deal breaker. The WoW token was that for me in Wrath. That was my deal breaker in Wrath. And, you know, got Shadowmourne, deleted it, logged off, uninstalled Wrath forever. I don't know what the deal breaker is going to be in me for Era. I hope it's still a long time before it comes, but the fact just makes me, I don't know, it instills a sense of dread into me. And by the way, like, yeah, like any actual balance change in your own subs, technically they already made their first one. I kind of didn't really talk about this one at all, but... Remember how I talked about, like, you wanted to watch the OG Star Wars trilogy and just enjoy it for what it was? You go back and watch the cool space battles. Now, instead of watching them fight with lightsabers, you can go back and watch Luke and Darth Vader duel it out with pole arms. This is a mostly meaningless class modification here, because like letting druids use pole arms doesn't do anything. I don't know why the fuck they even changed this, because like what pole arms do druids want anyways? But once again, this is the first ever class balance to change they've made in the history of Classic Vanilla, ever. Well, you could maybe make the argument that like allowing Rest to Seal twist was a thing, but like that was more due to batching, not like an intentional thing. This is the first ever truly intentional, truly clearly stated we are changing a class in Era. And I know it's small, I know it's meaningless, I know it changes, for now, nothing. But the same thing happened in Wrath. Just a little minor class change, don't worry, doesn't mean anything. But maybe one more, maybe one more, maybe one more, maybe another, and then all of a sudden like, ooh, we can change the classes now? Let me go on the forums real quick. Could Rats maybe get Crusader Strike? Could we have Boomkins do twice the damage now? Ooh, I could really, it'd be really nice if like, I don't know, Warlocks could have like an AoE spell. This little tiny change, as insignificant as it seems, is Blizzard telling us, hey, we're willing to change classes now. That's what this is. The change itself means nothing. It's the implication of danger, as Dennis would say. By Ren and Ani, you need them? Well, I don't, and no one on Alliance needs it anymore too, so I wouldn't be shocked if this just doesn't go out for the next few hours. Didn't they change Era ranking on Era? They did, yeah, and at the time, I guess now that I look back on it, I was coping, thinking that it wasn't a big deal, but honestly now, in hindsight, I should have been more concerned. Anyways, what was I doing before this entire thing started? We can go back to other character now. I know that eventually we are going to be raiding soon. The Winter Spring, sure.